The webinar title for today is Are We Doing Enough? Advancing fish health and welfare for sustainable aquaculture through One Health. And we have an expert list of panelists here today to take us through this topic and shed more light on the health welfare nexus. So today our moderator is Julie Burger, the Afterwell Program Manager and an aquatic health scientist who should take us through today. And I'll be in the webinar chat with the rest of you and can connect there. Thank you. Julie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bashirat. As she introduced me, I'm the program manager for the African Fish and Aquaculture Welfare Program, and I'm delighted to be your webinar moderator. So I'll just start by introducing our panelists. And our first panelist, Dr. Bashirat, would you please share the screen? So as Dr. Bashir shares the screen, it would just be important to talk about aquaculture, which is one of the fast-growing food sectors globally. And while fish health often receives attention, fish welfare is often overlooked. And today, our distinguished panelists will explore how fish health and welfare are inseparable, and why bringing them together is actually key for sustainability, for food security, and livelihoods across Africa and beyond. So our webinar's title today is, Are We Doing Enough? Advancing Fish Health and Welfare for Sustainable Aquaculture through One Health. And we're bridging the health nexus, welfare nexus from disease prevention to ethical care in aquaculture. Our first panelist today is Dr. Nadia. Dr. Nadia serves as the head of Fish and Shellfish Health Diagnostic Section at the National Institute of Sea Sciences and Technologies, where she leads a team of scientists focused primarily on aquatic viral pathogens affecting finfish species. Her research encompasses understanding the molecular mechanisms of viral infections in fish populations, developing innovative diagnostic tools, and designing strategies for the prevention and control of viral diseases in aquaculture. Dr. Nadia is an active member of the World Aquaculture Society, the African chapter, the Animal Health Expert Committee of the National Center of Zoo Sanitary Surveillance, and the Aquatic Animal Health Expert Group of the African Union, Inter-African Bureau for Animal Resources. She also serves as a resource person for the General Fisheries Commission for the Mediterranean, and also is a principal investigator of several national and international research projects focusing on viral diseases and biosecurity. Our next panelist is Dr. John Walakira. Dr. John is a notable principal scientist at the National Agriculture Research Organization in Uganda, with more than 20 years of experience in aquaculture research, management, and development. He has held a variety of key positions, including serving as the president of the World Aquaculture Society African chapter. He is recognized for his expertise in fisheries and aquaculture, having contributed significantly to research initiatives, policy formulation, and the implementation of sustainable agricultural practices. He has mentored scientists, students, and over 30 peer-reviewed publications, books, and communication materials. He has contributed to policy frameworks and research on aquatic animal organism health at the national, regional, and international levels. He has also played a pivotal role in fostering partnerships with regional organizations and international organizations, contributing to transformative impacts Oh, my apologies. Would you please go back to Dr. Walakira?
Yes, it's presently on Dr. Walakira.
There's a problem on my end.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Yes, also played
contributing to
pivotal.
transformative. Can you hear me, Dr. Bashirat?
Yes, okay. Can hear you.
Yeah, contributing to transformative impacts on the community livelihoods, nutrition, and food security in East Africa. Then our other panelist is Dr. Elize Zohabonayo. He's the Director of Aquaculture Management and Development at the Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization and serves as the Regional True Fish Coordinator. He has extensive experience in aquaculture policy, development, and management across East Africa, with a strong focus on promoting sustainable aquaculture systems, regional collaboration, and private sector engagement. Dr. Nzuhabunayo has contributed to advancing aquaculture governance and capacity building within the East African community, working at the intersection of research, policy, and practice. His leadership has been instrumental in driving regional initiatives that support the blue economy, enhance aquaculture productivity, and strengthen policy frameworks for sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. And finally, our last panelist is Steve Moran. Steve is a pioneer in sustainable aquaculture, committed to advancing food security and nutrition and poverty alleviation in sub-Saharan Africa. He co-founded Victory Farms in 2016 with a mission to build the world's most sustainable fish business, now operating in Kenya and Rwanda, creating over 10,000 jobs and supplying affordable, nutritious fish to millions. Victory Farms has been recognized for its rapid growth, efficient cold chain, and capital-efficient tilapia production systems, setting new standards for the industry. Previously, Steve managed Tropo Farms in Ghana, scaling it into one of Africa's largest tilapia producers. His career spans large-scale fish farming, consultancy, and community aquaculture projects across Africa, supported by early experience in the UK, ornamental fish trade. He continues to drive innovation that links aquaculture to both community and environmental sustainability. Join me in welcoming our panelists.
Greetings, everyone.
Thank you so much. So we'll just jump in to the questions. And generally, I would just like to have an opening question. So fish health and welfare are often discussed separately, yet they're truly just two sides of the same coin. So from your perspective, Dr. Nadia, what does a truly healthy fish and a well-cared for fish looks like? And why does this matter for sustainable aquaculture?
Hello. If
Yes,
you hear
Dr.
me well, and thank you
Yes, we
very
can.
much, Julie. I'm very delighted to be with you among this panel and in this webinar today. Yeah, and thank you for the question. This is a good introduction. I'll be directly and short in answering. So if we say good water quality, balanced nutrition, low stress, that means minimum exposure to pathogens, and also from the scientific perspective, these are that means conditions that are strengthening the immunity of the fish or the aquatic organism and reduce susceptibility to the fish. From other side, from an ethical perspective, this also reflects responsible farming and that values the animal as a sentient being. You know, it's not like a fish that we don't hear the sound or something like this, because sometimes we don't hear the animal, we don't think about it correctly. So for aquaculture to be sustainable, we cannot really separate health from welfare. When we have a robust and stress-free fish, it will perform better, of course. So and it will require fewer treatments, and finally it will contribute to a safer food. So a truly healthy and well cared for fish is one that thrives in an environment where its physiological behavior and ecological needs also are respected. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadia. I would ask the same question to Dr. Elize. What does a truly healthy and well-cared fish looks like, and why does it matter for sustainable aquaculture?
Thank you very much
for the question. As I said, I'm Dr. Irize Zobonayo. I work with the Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization as the Director of Aquaculture Management and Development. And thank you very much for inviting me in this important webinar. As a straight to point, a truly fish, a healthy fish and a well-cared fish is a fish that, to me, is free to diseases, grow well, show normal feeding and swimming behavior when it is in the water, and the fish that has a very good nutrition and grows well. And such condition, if all those conditions are well maintained, the fish will improve, such condition will improve the productivity and the sustainability of aquaculture. Why is it matter? This is a matter because the sustainability of aquaculture requires that fish health and welfare are interconnected. Stressed fish with poor treatment is more vulnerable to fish diseases, and they also require chemical and veterinary intervention, which may have reduced the growth and the survival rates. And all those, if those harmful condition are there, it also increase the production costs and the environmental impact of the business, the fish farming. I think I can stop by there. Maybe we'll have other question that we may give clarification. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. Steve, I would ask you the same question. From your perspective, what does a truly healthy and well-cared fish look like? And why does it matter for sustainable aquaculture?
Sorry, it's just unmuting. Apologies. Yeah, greetings, everyone. Thanks, Julie. What is a healthy fish? Is a happy fish. And a happy fish is a sustainable fish. It's a fish that's going to grow. It's going to make money. It's as simple as that for me. It's absolutely essential to everything we do as fish farmers has to be the fish. The fish must be first in every conversation, be it nutrition, be it health, be it genetics, water quality. Fish is central to everything. The goal, the objective of what we do is to feed people. In order to do that, for us to do that sustainably, be it environmentally, be it economically, you have to do that with happy fish. If you don't have the fish's welfare central in every decision you make on a farm, the farm is not going to succeed. And if the farm doesn't succeed, then we're not going to fail in our primary mission, which is to produce food. So yeah, I mean, it's absolutely front and center. Fish health, fish welfare, fish happiness, and then the absolute foundation behind that, which is the environment. It's water quality. It's impossible to have a happy, healthy, sustainable fish if you don't have a respected and resilient ecosystem and environment behind it. The whole thing has to be managed holistically. Thank
you for bringing a new word, happy fish. I like it when the fish are happy. So, Dr. Walakira, same question to you. From your perspective, what does a truly healthy and well-cared fish look like, and why does it matter for sustainable aquaculture?
Thank you very much, Julie. I think most points have been mentioned, but we should not look at only fish, but also even other aquatic animals like crustaceans, mollusks. But it's all about the care, good care. It's all about good care. I mean, the husbandry, all about the good environment where this fish is living in, but also you give it its normal biological behavior to be, exist in that environment. They can breed freely, they can eat freely without any other interventions. They can less stressed, but above all, also it's about the environment, that even within that environment, less polluted, and then also less polluted and does not even affect others. And even what they're doing, if, for example, maybe caged fish, or maybe even mollusks or crustaceans that are in the water, should not even affect even the other fish that are in the natural environment, the wild fish or the wild caught fish. So they should live in an harmonious environment, but also benefiting the environment and also us who are looking after them. It's good that Dr. Nadia had mentioned that you're looking at an animal. If you look at the veterinarians are looking at the terrestrial animals and they don't talk, but now the aquaculturists are looking. It's very hard, even more for the aquaculturist to look at that environment, like you're looking at the water, but ensuring that water is good for that aquatic organisms, and benefiting both the external environment, or maybe the environment, but also us who are looking for economic benefits, for socio-economic benefits. So basically, those are the things. But a truly healthy, welfare is that condition where you provide to the aquatic animals in order to thrive naturally without any encumbrances. Briefly, that's what I should say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Walakira. I like that we're talking about not just health, but welfare, because health, and Dr. Nadia can correct me if I'm wrong, is basically the presence or absence of disease. But when you talk about welfare, it's not just, a fish could not be having a disease, but is it really comfortable? And that's why we talk about the happiness that Steve is bringing in, ensuring that the overall well-being of the fish has actually been taken care of. And Dr. Nadia, your work focuses on viral diseases in aquaculture. So how do gaps in welfare practices, for instance, rough handling, stocking density, or water quality, increase vulnerability to viral pathogens?
Thank you, Julie. So welfare gaps, I can say that they directly will be translated into a higher viral risk, because what you mentioned, for me, as a rough handling or bad handling, transport, stocking density, or water quality, for me, or for the farmers, these are good practices, and this is the basis of biosecurity in sight, because maybe now we are focusing on the viral diseases, and for the viral infections that we do not have treatments, so we will not be treating with antibiotics to see if the infection will go down or not. So the only option is prevention for us for the viral outbreaks. So it's really, the welfare is really, really important for the viral pathogens. I would not say more important for bacteria, but at least we do not have the choice when we have in front of us a virus. So stress, all kind of stress, overcrowding, transport will reduce generally the mucus production and will sometimes damage the gills, suppress the immunity. So all of these will create just what we call windows of opportunity for the virus to enter. So, for example, tilapia lake virus, they will be strongly introduced in ponds, for example, through when we have very high stocking density. It's a major factor or risk factor, combined with poor water exchange and low oxygen, then we will have a disaster. So in catfish, it will be the same thing for transfer to see iridovirus, for example. In marine fish, For example, in North Africa, we work mainly with offshore cages, and over density will make fish more vulnerable to outbreaks such like VNN or beta nodovirus associated mortality. So suboptimal water quality and other physicochemical parameters will further compromise the fish defense and accelerate the viral replication. So other welfare-related risk factors will include poor nutrition also, which weakens resistance and control movement of the fry, which introduce the pathogen across the farm. So insufficient fallowing also or disinfection will enable the virus to persist in the environment, so in the sediment or in the biofilm. And now we are more and more talking about the reservoirs, especially in the wild species. So in practice, when welfare is neglected, we will not only see higher mortalities, but we also will be increasing the viral or the microbial persistence, the co-infections with bacteria and parasites, and faster farm-to-farm spread. So that's why welfare lapses are not secondary. They are primarily drivers for viral disease outbreaks in both freshwater and marine water aquaculture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadia. You've mentioned something to do with welfare lapses and the issues of parasites and bacterial infections. And as you know, parasites cause the primary infections. The bacteria basically is the secondary infection. And that happens when your fish is rendered susceptible based on those parasites. And you've mentioned something very important, that it's not possible to treat viral diseases. So I'm looking at Victory Farms that produces large scale, they produce so much tilapia. And Victory, Steve, this is for you. Victory has demonstrated the large scale aquaculture can prioritize both profitability and responsibility. So how have you embedded fish health diagnostics and welfare practices as core business drivers in Victory Farms rather than just compliance measures?
Cool. Yeah, no, thank you. I said we've managed to prioritize both. I think it's impossible to prioritize one and not the other. To take a step back, in order for us to be a business that continues to grow, we have to be sustainable. Part of being sustainable, that includes, there's so many different definitions of the word, but it's environmental sustainability. It's managing the lake and the environment, managing our fish within that holistically. It's being socially sustainable and creating and building and reinforcing that social license to operate. It has to also be financially sustainable. If it's not financially sustainable, then it's irrelevant if the other two are sustainable, because the business has collapsed. So it's not a question of trying to prioritize both. It's central to how you build and design the business that those key tenets have to be part of what you can do. It's easy to go to an environment, any site, throw some fish in the water, pump them full of feed, and make some money quite quickly. But to do that over a sustainable period of time is a very, very different challenge. And if you come in with the wrong emphasis, which is just to come in, exploit, and then get out quick, well, you better get out before you lose your money, because at some point, carrying capacity, fish health, Gaia will come around and destroy you, and your business will collapse. It will catch up with you. So it has to be done in order to be sustainable as a business. You have to have environmental and social sustainability, fish welfare, water quality management, all those things central to what we do. So therefore, if you just view it as a compliance measure, good luck, your business is doomed to fail, because you're not prioritizing the absolute foundations behind your business. If you're farming fish in a RAS system, it's closed off to the rest of the world, then all you do have to focus on there is what's inside those walls and your biosecurity there and your compliance certification. But we're not. We're farming in a diffuse environment. Yeah, you can put the most stringent biosecurity measures in place, but the wild fish are the wild fish, the birds are the birds, the currents in the lake, and that your neighbor is doing his thing. It has to be central to what you're doing, and therefore you've got to. So back to the other question: what does a healthy fish look like? Well, that's our job to understand that. And how do we understand what is a healthy fish with good welfare? What is a happy fish? It's through surveillance, it's through diagnostics. The fish can't talk to us. So the only way we can tell if this is a happy fish, if we put the right welfare measures in place, is through diagnostics. It is through surveillance, watching what's happening, following the fish in terms of how we feed the fish, having interventions on the fish that we have to do as farmers. Of course, we have to touch and handle our fish as farmers, but when do we do that? And then you could be using environmental drivers to make those decisions, not handling the fish at times that could jeopardize them. But equally, feed response is probably the biggest indicator that we use every day. And we don't use feed response to purely manage feeding. We use that as a welfare management tool as well. And then, yeah, of course, there's actual diagnostics. There's taking samples and sending them to laboratories to do it. There's our resident vets who are doing that in-house with microscope pathology work in-house, sending samples out, getting PCR tests done, culturing things. It's all part of a big surveillance program. But ultimately, what is that doing? That's giving you visibility into fish welfare and fish health. As farmers, what I think we unfortunately do too often is this very, very blinkered view where we measure both fish health and fish welfare in terms of mortality. Well, of course, by then it's too late because the animal's dead. So we need to be using indicators that tell us before it becomes an issue. Yeah, there are interventions we could use on our fish. We can use on our fish, but before you get to the point of interventions, it's managing the system holistically, managing the animal's welfare holistically, and trying therefore to spot issues before they're an issue. That may necessitate an intervention for that little cohort of fish. But even more important from that is then the institutional learning to make sure you don't repeat that again.
Thank you so much, Steve. I like what you've said that, when we're feeding fish, you mentioned that fish cannot speak, but I feel like fish can actually speak because it tells us when you're feeding them and they're not feeding well, they're actually communicating. They may not necessarily,
they can communicate, they just can't speak. Yeah,
they can
exactly
communicate.
That.
You can literally tell a story based on how your fish are behaving. And that talks about the welfare. And now I'm looking at this from the policy and governance perspective, and this goes to you, Dr. Elize. Steve has spoken about social sustainability, profitability, and responsibility. Dr. Nadia has spoken about why it's very important to handle your fish well because of the diseases that can actually come from not being handled well. And now, as the director of LVFO and TrueFish, I'm sure you work with a lot of fish farmers and institutions. What are the key governance challenges that prevent fish welfare from being fully embedded in regional aquaculture policies?
Okay, thank you very much. Governance is a high importance these days, and but there are several challenges that continue to prevent fish welfare being fully embedded in the regional policy. I can cite maybe 4 or 5 challenges. The first challenge is the fragmented institutional mandate. You find that the fisheries, aquaculture, veterinary, and the environmental agencies are operating separately with no single body leading to fish health. And there is no connection between all those departments to take care of fish health. Secondly, I can say that there is a limited or absence of legal framework as the national aquaculture regulation only focuses only on production and the diseases control. But as you said, it's not all about diseases free. It's also about how the fish behave. A happy fish, as Stephen indicated. But there is rarely those regulations really include welfare standards and enforcement mechanism to be enforced for the fish to be happy. Thirdly is low technical capacity. You find that the extension workers, the inspectors have sufficient knowledge to apply or to make sure that all those standards for the fish to be happy are followed. The fourth challenge that I can see is economic pressure, which make for example, the farmers to see that if those welfare standards are followed, is another cost for the farmers, the cost of production. So the farmers will not prioritize all those welfare practice because the farmers see as an added cost on the production. The other things is weak regional harmonization, where I find that the guidelines are inconsistent in terms of standard between countries, and undermining the enforcement and the trade. The last challenge that I can list here is a limited stakeholders awareness, where farmers, extension workers, consumers are lacking the understanding of welfare benefits and the welfare benefit and the policy being living the welfare will have also a lower buy-in by the farmers to apply the welfare practices. So in short, there are several challenges that still there, although the regulators are trying all it takes to standardize and also to enforce the practice to make the fish happy, as Stephen indicated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elise. You brought something very important about the economic pressure. And from what you've said is that farmers would rather prioritize profitability over responsibility. And that's not the same language that Steve was speaking, because according to him and how it has worked for Victory Farms, it's actually prioritizing, responsibility. Because when you look at, I think we need to give this information to unpack it in a way that we incentivize farmers to actually prioritize fish welfare. And they need to understand that fish welfare actually means more profits. Because if you're not really taking care of your fish, then it means you have longer culture periods, you're spending so much, in terms of inputs to feed fish that are sick, and they will take longer to grow to reach the table size. You may not be able to access the markets because of the quality of product that you're actually producing. So I think this is all about how do we communicate to farmers to make them understand that fish welfare is actually for their benefit. And since you've spoken about policy gaps, I want to redirect this question to Dr. Walakira, who's also worked in policy for a long time. Dr. Walakira, you've worked extensively in science and policy interface. What are the biggest policy blind spots in integrating fish welfare alongside health in East Africa?
Oh, yeah, thank you. First of all, we'd like to thank the African member states that have come up with tremendous effort to make sure that the issue of fish health, I begin with the fish health, is now aggressively addressed in all policies. I take SADC countries and even East African countries, even the Northern Hemisphere. So there's at least recognition of issues of diseases in the African continent. That's one. However, most of the policies are talking much of the productivity and very little even on the disease control. actually you can find in a country, it's a country's policy, it's just a statement. That's one. But they forget the issue of welfare. So one, it lacks, you've talked even of the awareness. I mean, if you tell a farmer, small scale farmer, awareness, what is this all awareness? Even some of them don't know any issue about diseases. Now you have brought in the aspect of welfare. So we need to build in that factor of awareness. Two, we need to come up with clear guidelines of how we should take care of these animals. And I'm including even the mollusks, even the crustaceans. But even in aspect of the management, you find how we transport the fish, how we kill the fish, and we kill the fish either for disease control and how we either use it for consuming. There are ways of how you kill that fish in a humane way, rather than just, cutting the fish and all that. You first have to put it in a mode that it's in the sleeping mode, it's sedated, and then some people in research, you use MS222, and then afterwards you kill the fish. Those steps are very important because even it affects the quality of that fish. Two, and then we have very little recognition when you're certifying the products, the aquatic products. We do not even consider the welfare of that because, as I said, it also affects the quality of the products. So therefore, these have to be included into the standards. And then we have to make sure that the welfare issues are visible within these policies. Other than that, we are not going to do that. And believe me, this welfare issue is not only for the, what we call the commercial farmers, people like Victoria or Yalelo or what, but even the small scale farmers have to consider this. For example, if the farmers are using, let's say, offals and what, it ends up even polluting the water and affects even the welfare of the fish. So you need to train these farmers on how to make sure, yes, we are feeding on that low cost feed, but it has to consider even the environment. Then the other issue is the research and development. Research and development also, what are these guidelines? Because these guidelines are empirically or scientifically generated. So maybe even different fish require different welfare conditions. So it's also the research and development aspect has to be included. It's lacking. So if you look, most of the policies are just a statement, and even a paragraph if they can help you. But there should be in-depth, explicit explanation of this welfare. And it's very fair. And colleagues and viewers, if you look at Japan, the koi industry, a broodstock alone can cost up to $100,000 US, up one broodstock of koi. But the way they look at that fish is all actually around it. It goes around the welfare of that fish to get that very good quality broodstock. And to me, that's what we need to look at. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Walakira. Clearly, there's a gap in policy, and we need to create more awareness on why it's important to ensure fish welfare is, considered in all our aquaculture practices. As you said, prevention is better than treatment. And what I often bring out is that if a local farmer, a small-scale farmer, cannot identify that the fish are sick, what are you treating? And assuming that we're talking about a situation like Dr. Nadia mentioned, where we're looking at viral infections that do not even have any sort of treatment, then why are you feeding your fish with antibiotics, for instance? And there's clearly a gap, when it comes to knowledge, and we need to create more awareness. The problem is we have farmers like Steve and Victory Farms that are large scale, and they have the capacity to invite people, veterinary services, to come and look at their fish. But then we have the small scale farmers who do not have the capacity. And that's where there's the gap. But how do we bridge this gap? And Dr. Walakira spoke about killing fish and slaughter and how we need to have humane handling of fish. And I'll direct that question when we get to Steve, where you'll talk about the cold chain storage. But now I want to talk to Dr. Nadia. Dr. Nadia, you've pioneered diagnostic tools for aquatic viruses. How can rapid diagnostics contribute not only to disease prevention, but also safeguarding fish welfare?
Yeah, so you're right. Rapid diagnostics are actually critical and very important because we can say that they will shorten the time between the field suspicion and the laboratory confirmation. So this timeliness changes everything, actually. Instead of restoring to blanket measures like mass treatment or emergency harvesting or even culling, all of which also compromises the welfare, we can take precise, proportionate actions. So, for example, rapid PCRs or LAMP or ELISAs, tests for many viruses or other microbes also can allow us to confirm cases with hours, not with days. So this means that affected groups can be isolated, water quality can be optimized, biosecurity will be tightened without causing additional stress to healthier stocks remaining. So this is very important. Developing rapid tests also is continuous, will be always important. But equally important is, or let's say these tools only have impact if they are embedded in a strong veterinary lab system. So diagnostic labs act as the backbone of fish health management. So they validate the result, they provide reference support and ensure all the data are collected from farms and transmitted into actionable insights. So the flow of information from the field to the laboratory and back to the farmer is crucial. Without it, diagnostic remains underused, let's say. So building capacity here is very important, and training for technicians, vets, extension workers to collect proper samples and use the in situ kit and interpret results will create a trust in the diagnostics. So in some context, portable molecular tools such as nanopores, also sequencing now, or rapid ELISAs can be deployed directly at the farm, and this will give farmers and vets the guidance while linking back to the central lab for confirmation. Of course, we cannot avoid that. So rapid diagnoses are more than just disease diagnostic tools. They are instrument of welfare, if we want to say. They reduce unnecessary suffering, avoid overuse of treatment, and build a culture of early warning and prevention, actually. So finally, they will assure farmers that good welfare and good prevention are inseparable again, and that the laboratory is not distant, but a partner in day-to-day care. Yeah, this is how I think of rapid diagnosis, and they will, I'm sure that novel tools will improve our daily life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadia. You've mentioned something very important about rapid tools and, as an instrument of fish welfare. And, the importance of building capacities. I like the fact that we're talking about tools that actually small-scale farmers can use them without necessarily requiring this, very complicated lab. Steve, I've been to Victory Farms, and Victory Farms has been recognized for innovation in biosecurity and sustainability. How have you successfully integrated diagnostics, biosecurity, and humane practices in that high-volume production system? And how do you do it without compromising efficiency?
See, again, I'm going to turn the question around like I did last time. That is what drives efficiency. It's not, these things do not compromise what you're doing. They reinforce it, they emphasize it, they give you the information, the tools, the data that you need to become a better farmer. So without having diagnostics in there, how do you know whether okay, as a farmer, every day you're striving to have happier fish. But unless you know whether today's fish is happier than yesterday, how do you know if you're achieving that? And it's all of that every single step you make on that journey to understand your animals better, understand the system that they are growing in better, that's what drives efficiency. So it's just trying to think of some examples. Diagnostics is a really important one. It's a tricky situation that we're in today, because realistically, diagnostics on the continent today, to get accurate diagnostics of what you can do, some basic microscope work, and you could dissect the fish and find some liver granuloma or something. You can narrow it down to a few different pathogens, but to truly understand which pathogen is impacting your fish, you have to send a sample to a laboratory. And unfortunately, the reality is today, that means putting a sample on a plane to somewhere outside of sub-Saharan. And even then, you've got to wait 6, 8, 10 weeks to get your results back. So it makes it really, really difficult to then come up with an intervention about how you can improve fish welfare. You can learn and do it better next time, but for that population of fish, it's probably now too late. You take a sample from a sick fish, you've got to wait 10 weeks to get a sample, the results back. Obviously, by then, that fish has passed on. But it doesn't mean don't do it. You then need to try to understand, what did we do that perhaps caused this? What can we do to understand it? What's the progression of the disease through the cohort, through a population? Are there changes in prevalence through the seasons? All of these different things that you can do to understand the impact of the interventions that we make on the animals. Every day we're feeding the fish. Many times during the life cycle, we have to handle the fish. And every single time we do that, of course, we're putting stress on the animal. And we all know, I hope we all know it as farmers, certainly everyone in this call is fully aware, every time we stress an animal, you're weakening the immune system, which means there's more likelihood that one of these pathogens is going to come in and impact the population. And to think that we don't have pathogens in the environment that we're operating in, it would be frankly naive. They're everywhere. They're in the air that we breathe. They're on my laptop today. They're everywhere. But how can we manage fish better to mitigate the impacts, to reduce the impacts of those pathogens on the population? The only way to do that is by focusing on biosecurity, focusing on those core tenets of sustainability, understanding your fish, understanding your farm, and understanding your numbers. And by doing that, and by building that understanding and building the data set, it's not about what you think or what you feel, it's about what you know. And you only know something if you've got data to substantiate it. So you can, all the time at Victory, we're challenging ourselves to improve things, to innovate things. And a lot of that, it's getting back down to some really basic scientific principles. And the first thing we do is, okay, there's a challenge. What's our hypothesis? We see this in the cage. What is our hypothesis as what's going on? And it's back down to science we learned when we were 12, 14 years old. Okay, this is a hypothesis. How are we going to test that hypothesis? And then we're going to learn something, and then we're going to implement it in our farming. And every iteration of that should give you better efficiency in the biological system, which equals more profit. Every single cage that we farm, that we harvest, there will have been something that we've done differently. And it's our job as farmers to make sure that those differences we do are positive improvements in the production system. And if they are, and occasionally we do stuff wrong, of course we'll do stuff wrong. We're human beings, but net positive improvements in the system, ultimately that's going to drive the efficiency and therefore the profitability of the business, which is what drives its sustainability.
Thank you so much, Steve. Clearly, understanding your fish better and understanding the impacts of the different interventions is very important. What I gather from what you've said is that there's actually a huge limitation in capacities, because if we have to send samples abroad due to the lack of capacity locally, then there's clearly a problem, because the small-scale farmer may not afford to do that. That is something only a large-scale farmer like Victory Farms can do. And Dr. Elise, with regards to what Steve has just said,
that, I mean, it's perhaps not, the cost isn't necessarily, if you're sending it to a local lab, to send a sample to a lab in Aberdeen or Inverness or in Vietnam versus a lab in Nairobi or Kigali, apart from the logistics of getting the sample there, which isn't prohibitive, actual lab cost, there's not a huge difference between. but it's the lack of capacity. And the unfortunate reality is the local labs today aren't giving us the efficacy and the results that we need. So it's smallholder farmers, it's more than it's the knowledge and the understanding. To send a sample to Nairobi or get it DHL'd to Scotland, actually the incremental cost is marginal, but it's most farms aren't sending a sample anywhere. So we need to build the regional capacity for testing. And there's been loads of great work happening on that in the last couple of years. Definitely, we're in a much stronger position today than we were 5 years ago in East Africa. Huge steps forward. We're not there today, but the first piece is back to the understanding of trying to teach, to help farmers understand that this is central to the success of their business. And if we can get that culture shift amongst the farms, then diagnostics will follow. In the same way that 5 years ago, there were no feed mills in East Africa. Now there's far more. Feed exceeds production capacity many times over. The business opportunity is there for someone to build a lab, but the business opportunity isn't there if the farmers don't prioritize fish welfare and fish health.
Thank you, Steve. Clearly, from what you're saying, regional capacity for testing needs to be built. And Dr. Elise, regional capacity and regional collaboration is clearly key for sustainable aquaculture. So how can the East African community institutions and other institutions within the region ensure that fish welfare is just not sidelined when health frameworks are being developed?
Okay, thank you very much. The East African Community Institution, to ensure that fish welfare is not overlooked in the development of framework, the institution should integrate the welfare consideration into policy, into capacity building, as you said, and also into regional standard, so that the stakeholders who are interfacing with the fish should know the standard that they need to follow. For example, if you go to a farm where they are harvesting fish, the workers sometimes, if they are not well trained, they just throw fish as they want, not in care that the fish will damage, and the customer that are going to buy the fish will not be happy when the fish is not, it doesn't have its original shape. For instance, the institution should integrate the welfare into health standards. By making the welfare indicators such as stocking density, water quality, human handling, as I said, part of the fish wealth regulation and the guideline. In terms of capacity building, the farmers should be trained, inspectors, and also institution should also monitor both health and the welfare. Not just disease control, but also welfare need to be emphasized. And lastly, the adoption of harmonized regulation welfare standard and indicators should also play a key role. The institution should play a key role by developing a concise set of regional welfare standards, as I say, the handling, transportation, stocking density, the water quality, and all those measures should be well highlighted so that they are measurable indicators that must be included in regional diseases surveillance and the plan, so that farmers, when they are handling fish, should handle in a human way, of handling the fish, so that the end customer, the consumers get the fish which are healthy, which will not cause them other diseases when they are consuming it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elize. From the policy and regulatory aspect, when you're looking at frameworks, I feel that we need to emphasize on ensuring market access, ensuring compliance, looking at quality, because as you say, as you talk about humane handling, it actually has a long-term implication on the final product quality. So we need to look at things like those. We need to ensure there's records, health records that are being kept. If we look at the nature of the small-scale farmers, for instance, most of them do not even have health records that they can look at and say that this is what happened in this month, and this is what I used to treat my fish, and this is, how many times I've had a vet person coming to look at my farm. So it's quite lacking in terms of capacity when we look at issues around quality, compliance, access to markets. And I feel like if we look at all these things and ensure that we manage that, we can actually sell our products to good markets. And so as we talk about humane handling, it takes me to a point where if you look at the fisheries value chain, the handling part, for instance, processing is usually done by females and the youths. And Dr. Walakira, many of your projects emphasize gender-sensitive and community-driven approaches. So how can welfare considerations be made more inclusive, of smallholder farmers and women in aquaculture?
It's just very simple. Come up with low-cost technologies that the women can afford. For example, if you come up with a technology that is used to monitor the water quality, if you want to come and look at technologies, let's say, how are you going to handle that fish? How are you going to harvest that fish? They should be gender sensitive. You don't need so many men or what. A lady is busy cooking, but behind he has maybe a tank full of fish. How do you come up with that technology where he could, first of all, it saves time. It saves time. It's less costly, and he can take care of that fish in a humane way. I think that's one thing which we need to look at. Develop technologies which can be handled by women or even the youth who utilize their time, but at the same time are gaining even the money and even the food from it. So low-cost technologies are very important. And then the other thing is the knowledge. The knowledge should be the communication that you're using, because there's a lot of communication gaps within the women who are going to take care of these fish. We're not going to bring that high-tech information and give it to them, but it should be information that women can easily take up. And also the other issue is, if they are also working in a group, they can communicate with each other and transfer that knowledge amongst themselves. Then the other issue is, if you have asked yourself, why is it that there are very many ladies or women working in hatcheries? It's because they're very patient, and they're also they're in the way they can because the hatcheries, taking care of the seed, requires gentle handling of that fish. So, but you need to come up with technologies. Okay, for example, technologies that, or maybe even the information that can help them, so that they can use that efficiently without, harming the fish. I mean, that's what I should say. It's all technology driven, but it has to be low cost, and you're not going to bring something which is very expensive and huge, which they cannot afford, because they don't have time. They have even other responsibilities. Basically, that's what I should say, that it should be of low cost, but also affordable and easily to adapt by those special groups. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Walakira. I agree that low-cost technologies are quite important, and we need to remember that Steve also mentioned that we should not compromise on the quality of results that we get out of this. So as we look at the cost, we should also look at the quality of the output. And we're talking about women and their role in aquaculture and fisheries. And Dr. Nadia, you've led multiple international projects on fish diseases and biosecurity. Can you share a case study where improved biosecurity also advanced fish welfare?
Thank you, and thanks for all the points revealed by the colleagues also. I can share a couple of examples, for example, of the work we are doing in North Africa in general and nationally. So we mainly work with sea bass and sea bream, which are frequently affected by nodavirus, if we want to take it again as the example. So we are continually working on practical solutions, in fact, to improve the fish health and welfare in aquaculture, in the field especially. And if we talk about, as mentioned by my colleagues, the low-cost instruments and the easy using also, or friendly using tools, then I will give the example of the in situ biosensors to be directly used to orient or to guide a little bit the decision makers. So we have recently patented nationally, not internationally, a biosensor that can detect in the same time VNN, which is nodavirus, and also tilapia lake virus. So this really is enabling, or will be enabling, veterinary inspectors to prevent the introduction of the disease or the infected batches, because I'm focusing on the example of the Mediterranean aquaculture systems, where we are almost working in offshore fish cages, and most of the member states, they do not have quarantine installations. So we are importing a huge number of fries. For example, Tunisia imports 80% of its needs. So we are directly pouring it into water. We are not checking for other than the notifiable diseases. So healthy carriers are there, or I don't know, any other asymptomatic fish, or a low concentration or charge of the virus can be there, and you cannot see it by naked eyes, and also you do not.
Dr. Nadia, I cannot hear you. I don't know if it's a problem on my end. Can the rest of you hear her?
I can't hear her.
I lost her.
Okay.
Yeah, even me.
Dr. Nadia, we cannot hear you. I think there's a problem with her network. So I'll just pick it up from where Dr. Nadia left, and she was talking about practical solutions. And one of the case studies that she was sharing was the real-time monitoring of viruses using the device that they have. Clearly, we know that viruses cannot be treated. So if you can have something to monitor to ensure that we do not have an outbreak, that's actually good. And now I want to go to scalability. And Steve, I'll come to you. And in this regard, I would like you to talk about how you've you managed to scale tropopharms as an example. But Victory, from your experience scaling operations across Kenya, Rwanda, and Ghana, what lessons show that investing in fish welfare and health systems directly boosts productivity, efficiency, and profitability?
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Maybe it's best to actually list a couple of examples. I'm trying to think of some quickly, but it's the same principle behind everything. On the last question, it's everything that we do is to try to become smarter farmers and therefore better farmers. So by understanding, it's probably every time we handle the fish, we touch the fish, it has an impact on the animal, and it invariably is a negative one. But we have to do that. So how can we change our culture practices to drive better results? And some of those things can be incredibly simple. We did a really simple intervention a few years ago, 2-3 years ago in Kenya. All of our production cages have a feed ring on it, and the farmers and the academics, most people on the call would understand, that's a ring around the cage near the surface that prevents the drift of feed through the wind and wave action out of the cage. So it's an important resource, it's an important part of the technology, the infrastructure of the cage to prevent feed wastage. Now, those feed nets, the feed rings that we had in place were the same circumference as the cage, which kind of assumed would be a logical place to put it. But what we actually realized is we were getting, when we were looking at the moribund fish in the cage, and then the mortality, but even moribund fish, a lot of what we saw was physical damage on the flanks. When you cut these fish open, there was no signs of infection. Spleen, liver, kidney, everything internal on the fish looked clean, yet the fish is dying, and we're seeing this physical abrasion on the outside. So this, again, it's not a disease issue, it's a welfare issue. Okay, so what could be causing physical abrasions on both sides of the fish? And then through a period of observation, we realized that actually the fish were, for, we believe, relatively short periods, were getting stuck. So perhaps in a storm event or something, the fish would get caught between the feed ring and the wall of the cage. And in some cases, often a bigger, stronger animal would work out how to get out quite quickly. Others could be stuck there for a period of time, and they'd be rubbing up against those two pieces of material. And then a week later, you've got a dead fish. So through understanding, through firstly observation, then try to understand what was the actual cause of death, not just writing these off as a dead fish, but actually in the mortality records, you've got a record of, okay, what's the, at that point, it is a belief, it's an idea. What's the hypothesis as what is killing these fish? And then trying to then make a change in the production cycle to mitigate it. And that simple move boosted production survival in the production cage, looking at the data, probably somewhere between 2-3%, which in itself isn't a huge leap. But if you've got 100 tons in a cage, that's 2 tons more fish, which is $5,000 of extra revenue. That is your profitability. That is your sustainability. So small tweaks in what we're doing, and that doesn't involve sending samples out to a lab. That's some basic microscope work that we can do in-house, which told us this is not an infection. It's not it's a welfare issue rather than an infectious agent. It's not a bacterial infection. It's not viral. It's something physically happens to fish. Okay, what can we do to fix that? So changing those kind of things. And similarly, yeah, again, when we transport fish, perhaps from pond to cage, having really rigorous monitoring of something like oxygen levels during that process, and then comparing the data from the transport, which is an oxygen log with people taking regular oxygen readings from all the way from the happer before we even touch the happer, all the way through to the receiving cage, and a dozen or more oxygen readings throughout that process, and monitoring it through. You can then comparing that husbandry data, as it were, with pathology work on the animals and ultimately survival data, and you can then use that to change protocols and improve protocols, which give you a better net survival. Of course, survival is one of the biggest drivers of the pipeline. You have a finite number of eggs. You want to harvest as many animals as possible. So the better survival all the way through. But then it even goes further than that, because we know as biologists that how the fish is treated and those sort of the welfare of the fish early stage has massive effects on its future growth potential. So it's not just about survival. And again, we can become quite blinkered about that. But if a fish isn't challenged when it's young, the survivors will give you better growth and better FCR, because they're strong animals. They're animals that haven't been through that early stage threat. If you've got an animal that's had massive exposure to something like Francisella or Edwardsiella early stage, yes, it's a survivor and you'll be able to harvest it, but it's going to go through life with scar damage on its liver, which will impact on how it converts feed when it's 300 grams. So it's looking at this whole thing holistically again, and using understanding of fish welfare and fish health, then trying to understand how the pathogens are impacting the animals and how the farmers are impacting animals, how it is almost always, it's a human intervention that drives a lot of these instances, using that data and that understanding and that knowledge to then get better results as a farm, which drives your farm's sustainability. It's why we're here, and it's that every day our challenge as farmers is to be a better farmer than we were yesterday, and direct result of that is the only way, by being a better farmer, of course, we have happier fish, and if we have happier fish, you've also got a happier bank manager.
And you've got a happier farmer, hey?
We'd hope so, yeah. The
Yeah,
journey
like
isn't easy, but it's essential.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm glad that we're all talking about technologies that are friendly to the farmers, like financially. And you're talking about small tweaks that do not necessarily cost anything. It's just understanding how your fish work. And the importance of keeping records. You've mentioned the oxygen logs that you take during transportation of your fish. That is not something every farmer does, but then we're also learning as other farmers that are listening in and watching you on this webinar, that it's important to keep records, because then you can understand if there's any change in any dynamic, then you're able to pick it up quite quickly. And I like that you've said, it's just not the pathogen impact, but also the farmer impact, because you as a farmer, what are you doing to the fish? Because we always blame diseases, but we should also blame ourselves as farmers, because how are we handling our fish? And Dr. Elise, Steve is in the private sector and you happen to work in the government sector. So from your experience engaging both the public and the private sectors, how do we incentivize private sector investment in welfare-friendly practices? We have farmers like Steve that does not really require any incentive. He understands why it's very important to invest in welfare. But how do we incentivize other farmers?
Thank you very much. As I said before, when I was starting, I said that the private sector see the welfare, the fish welfare, as an added cost. I'm happy that Stephen does not among those people who are seeing it as an added cost, since he's a commercial farmer. And most of small-scale farmers see as another cost, yet is something that can help them to increase production. For example, a farmer may not may see that buying a thermometer to measure the temperature of the water is another cost, yet when the water is the temperature has raised, he will not see if the temperature has raised, so that he can do other measures to prevent that increase of temperature. So obviously, incentives are needed to attract the investment and encourage compliance with welfare standard and indicators. I can propose a few of them, like market incentives, by promoting better market access and high prices for farms that comply with certification. When the farm is certified, the product can reach even European market, US market, China market, which are paying very well compared to local market. It's about also labeling. The farmers who are labeling their product find their product increased price. So they are rewarded for having a welfare-friendly product. The other thing is financial support, which can provide the tax breaks, subsidies, like loans for farmers adopting welfare-friendly technologies and practices, and also capacity building. Those are also incentives that the private sector can get when they are complying with the welfare standards and indicators by supporting the training and the awareness program to demonstrate how good welfare improve productivity, for example, how it reduces losses and also increase the profitability of the fish. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elize. As we talk about incentives, I'm excited that we're talking about market access and ensuring that, farmers that actually meet the standards and they're compliant to fish welfare standards actually they have access to premium markets. They have, their products will fetch good prices. I'm also looking at this in terms of ensuring that the consumers demand a good quality product, because that will force the farmer to actually be compliant and produce good quality fish. And Dr. Walakira, with over 20 years in aquaculture, how have you seen the attitudes towards fish welfare evolve among farmers, researchers, and policymakers?
Oh, there's been a lot of change, I should say. So let me first begin with the researchers. I think the scientists nowadays are aware of what we call the institutional animal care and the animal use care. IACUC is one of the priorities that you need to have if you're going to do any research. Without that, you cannot even publish your paper. So it's an affirmative action for the scientists to ensure that they practice the best, they do the best practices to ensure that the welfare, the animals in their care, in their research, are looked after very well without, harming them. So that's one key issue. For the policies, first of all, governments now have recognized fish health issues and they've tagged that to the productivity. Without good fish health management, you don't produce enough. And without produce enough, you don't get good profits. Stephen has mentioned something which I would like to say. Yes, we have this infrastructure all over in the East African region, all in the African region, labs and all that, but many of them may not even function. And therefore, we have seen now the farmers are being empowered on issues on the, diagnostic levels of diagnostic levels, diagnostic level 1 and 2, to understand what happens when the systems have broken down or maybe the disease outbreak. So at least there's more effort, change towards that empowering farmers to learn fish health management. But also, unfortunately, very little is being mentioned about the welfare. But now we are seeing the PPP, that is a public-private partnership, where they're encouraging more private diagnostic services coming in from even overseas. Companies like VABAC, we see even Pharmac, and all coming in doing the diagnostic for the farmers, especially these big cage farmers. So at least now that one has been brought in, it will improve the services of diagnostic, but also it's still, and you see even extension being knowledge being provided to the farmers to understand how the system works very well. At least now there's that transition. Then you could see even now the farmers understanding, and I like to say, I want to quote someone who said, the disease services or the extension services that are being provided are now should be farmer friendly and not creating, a fear or what that, where there's this disease and, you end up even confusing the consumer. But I see more of extension services trying to provide the best practices, and including the fish health management. But although now we have to include in the issue of the welfare. Then the other issue is about awareness, the markets. Yes, we're talking about the welfare. Once we including the welfare, it also appeases the consumer to understand that, yes, what I'm looking and eating is looked after very well. Even when there are disease outbreaks, this is how we look at. So there's a little bit of transition, but like I said, the attitude right now is to ensure that the private sector comes in to look after this industry, because let the government provide the policies and let the private sector do much of the work. The farmers can work very well if not all these private extension services are provided. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Walakira. You've spoken about institutional animal care as a requirement in research. And basically, that's the same situation here in South Africa, where for you to do any research on any fish or any live animal, you have to get ethics approval. Because with the ethics approval, it's a guarantee of how you're going to handle your fish. You mainly have to get that approval. And I like that that's being, managed in research. And you've also spoken about public-private partnerships and the importance of ensuring that consumers are guaranteed that the product they're actually consuming is, the safety is guaranteed. And that's an incentive, because if a consumer demands that they want to eat fish that is actually produced well, then a farmer will be forced to actually be compliant. Dr. Nadia, back to you. Given your role in the World Aquaculture Society, CNV, AU-IBAR, FAO, what policy or regional framework do you believe could accelerate the integration of fish welfare into health management systems in Africa? Dr. Nadia? I'm not sure if okay, she says she has a problem with her internet. So Steve, then I will come back to you. So looking ahead, what emerging technologies or business innovations do you believe will make aquaculture more welfare friendly while strengthening its long-term commercial viability?
Okay, thanks, Julie. I think there'll be innovations and emerging technologies will definitely be part of the picture. The other part is just getting back to basic principles as well. So I think we need to view it through both lenses. Emerging technologies, absolutely. I mean, the potential for vaccines to have a positive impact on some of the bacterial diseases that we face in sub-Saharan is immense. There's nowhere near enough research going into that, into developing those at the moment. Innovations, I mean, there's a number of things we use at Victory to try to simplify the flow of fish through the pond. Not all of those are accessible to smallholders. I mean, we're now moving eggs in drones to bring them around to get them back to our hatchery quicker than bringing them in the back of a truck. And it's shortened the time from pond to incubation system from what used to sometimes take a couple of hours in a system on the back of a truck with artificial aeration, and we can now get eggs into our system in a matter of minutes. So there are definitely some big innovations which can happen, and a lot of those do come with cost, and they're not necessarily practical for every farm at every scale. But I think what is actually more important, but also actually more exciting, more inspiring, is aquaculture in sub-Saharan is still an incredibly nascent industry. It's the rest of the world. We all know the statistics in production from other parts of the world. They've already made a huge number of mistakes. They're producing huge volumes, but making an awful lot of mistakes on the way. Central to those mistakes is not putting the fish first in decision making. A lot of short-term decisions from farmers not being in step, in tow, working with the authorities, working with government, but also some of the other private sector NGOs, working with academia and research. And there are countless stories of how aquaculture as an industry can be built badly and can be inherently unsustainable and can be horrific for fish welfare, and ultimately not a great product for the consumer. We've got this incredible opportunity today to actually build an industry almost from nothing and build it based on robust, sound principles. And those must have sustainability at the center of it. It must have fish welfare and fish health central to it. And key to that is then, I think a lot of it is getting back to basics. I was reading a couple of the comments earlier on, and one of them, it's simple. The simple rule that somebody mentioned in the comments is the first thing we're doing is even forget about fish. We're not keeping fish, we're keeping water. If our water is good, then our fish will be happy. Yeah, you can see behind me this aquarium. The aquarium only looks as good as this because the life support system that sits underneath it that maintains the water quality. The fish are easy, but you have to invest. And investing doesn't mean investing, it can be investing money. It's also investing time and energy and investing our efforts into doing things the right way. And that has to be having that fish first focus. Every farm needs an oxygen meter. If there's anybody out there who's got a fish farm and they don't have an oxygen meter, go buy one tomorrow. It's the most important tool on a fish farm. Without it, how do you know if your fish have good water? So I think those are really, really important. The other, yes, was getting back to basics. A lot of the basics, the sort of first principles behind fish farming or behind tilapia farming, I do think we need to challenge. There's a lot of things that we do in tilapia farming, particularly today. I mean, I can only really speak about tilapia, that's my world. But we can only really speak about, there's a lot of things we do. And when you ask people why we do it, because that's how we've always done it. Well, that doesn't mean it's right. Yeah, just because you've always done something, well, yeah, we've always done it. And maybe we've always had a bad FCR, we've always had bad survival or a bad hatch rate. So we also need, as everyone, as institutions, as government, as private sector and farmers, we also need to challenge a lot of those principles as well. There's no such thing as a perfect farm. Victory Farms is far from perfect, trust me. We're learning every day and we're getting better every day. We're getting smarter every day. We're adopting different technologies on a regular basis. We're innovating, but we're also, everything we do, it's focusing on those basics, keeping the fish central in every decision we make. And yeah, not being, I suppose the other one, again, it's not really a business innovation. It's not being scared to talk about fish health. Often I find when I talk to other farmers, nobody ever wants to admit they got a sick fish. They've got an unhappy fish. They've got health challenges. The only way we can grow as an industry is actually if we share about fish health. And that's why things like this webinar are really important. Are we doing enough? Absolutely not. Are we doing more than we were doing yesterday? Yeah, and I'd say the same just about that as Victory, not just the wider industry. Victory isn't doing enough on fish health, but we're putting efforts in every single day to be better farmers, to be smarter farmers, and to keep it focused. And yeah, that's, as an industry, we have to just really, really embrace that. And then we can build a truly sustainable industry together. And yeah, we can help feed people. We can make a meaningful difference to food security on this continent. But only if we do it, we build from the right foundations today.
Thank you so much, Steve. You've literally just responded to our question for the webinar. Are we doing enough? We're not.
Okay.
And Patrick Corrie also made a statement in the comments and said traceability mechanisms need to be developed to ensure that we can actually track fish from farm to fork. And from what you've said, you're talking about innovation to ensure, traceability, sustainability, biosecurity, fish health and welfare. And what I like about how you've concluded is that people are really scared to talk about sick fish and fish health. Do we rephrase this and say unhappy fish? Because then that would make people talk about it more, So with regards to what you said, I want to go back to Dr. Nadia. And Dr. Nadia, I hope you can hear us now. So given your role in the World Aquaculture Society, in CNVZ, AU-IBAR, FAO, what policy or regional framework do you believe could accelerate the integration of fish welfare into health management systems in Africa?
Yes, Julie, I hope that you hear me, and sorry for this technical issue. Yeah,
we hear
thanks.
you.
Thanks. I'm sorry not to open my camera, not to worse things. And I will say that Africa already benefits from a strong regional platform or platforms working on aquatic animal health for the moment. And I will cite, of course, the AU-IBAR's aquatic initiatives. And actually now we have 3 aquatic animal health expert networks recently established under the Fish GOV2 project, and it is also supported by OA. So we talked about how to diagnose fish without sending them outside of the continent. We have a continental laboratory network that has been set up to strengthen effectively the diagnostics and harmonize how we, different countries and in different regions, are doing our surveillance, and how we are ensuring that all the priorities are being considered. And this is also in an objective to reduce the gaps between the different parts of the continent. I come from Tunisia, and I can give you also the example of another regional network, or it is a technical advisory group which belongs to the FAO General Commission of the Mediterranean. And this group includes experts from all over the region, from the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, and they provide guidance on aquatic animal health, biosecurity, welfare, and they support the implementation of the FAO's or the GFCM 2030 strategy. So mainly, we work on the harmonization of the protocols. We work a lot on risk assessment and how to foster or to empower our regional cooperation, hoping that this will enhance the resilience of the Mediterranean farming and mitigate how we manage or mitigate the outbreak impacts and environmental stressors also. So we work to ensure that policy decisions are informed by the latest scientific evidence, and this is very important because we will take in consideration all innovative tools and the climate also adaptive practices across the states. So I can say that these are very good initiatives. I hope that they will be giving their fruits in short term. But despite these achievements, what remains largely to be missing is the explicit integration, as we said, of fish welfare standards into existing biosecurity and disease surveillance frameworks. So practical steps to bridge this gap will include embedding welfare indicators in farm audits, for example, or in routine reporting and disease risk assessment. We have some initiatives here locally, but scaling up these to a national level and then to a regional level would take some time. We require really it is required to adjust the existing protocols. We do not have to create new institutions, we just need to update to recognize that health and welfare are inseparable and provide a good context and an appropriate and actionable guidance to farmers. So I think that a unified regional approach supported by all of these international instances, can really enhance the consistency across the countries, and they can also reduce the disparities, because we really have a very heterogeneous biosecurity level and implementation. Yeah, I think that when we deliver a scientific based evidence and recommendations to policymakers, it will finally ensure that aquaculture development in Africa, at least, will be both productive and responsible. Yeah, so this is mainly what I want to say for this policy framework from my side. And I wanted to rebound on the last questions of the tools that we have actually to improve the resilience or improve the biosecurity. Here I'm a researcher, so I'm giving you my point of view from a research center. I talked about the low cost and the rapid answers or the rapid tools, diagnostic tools as biosensors. I also wanted to share with colleagues that actually we're working on another aspect of biosecurity, and here we are talking about a quantitative biosecurity scoring system, because I think that numbers will talk better. It's nice to have guidelines, protocols, SOPs, good practices, say, yeah, you have to do this. It's better to, but when you auto-evaluate yourself or somebody evaluates you and give you a number and pinpoint exact gaps, what you need to improve compared to other neighboring farms or to the regional level, then you will be, I think that you will be more motivated, you know. So we are developing this biosecurity scoring system with our colleagues in NVI in Norway, and it is also an deliverable from an H2020 project, and I hope that it will show clear benefits on pilot farms now, and scaling them, of course, to the industry will require additional time, I think, but it's important to highlight it. One area also mentioned by Steve is the lack or the low number of vaccines in aquaculture that we need to work on. We have also opened one parenthesis in Tunisia on the development of a new generation of irradiated vaccine in aquaculture, and now it is. We have validated many steps, and the next step will be to test its efficiency in a fish system, because we are now working in a lab system with the cellular tests. So I hope it will see the light, and this kind of vaccines showed really efficiency in terrestrial animals. None of them is used in aquaculture, and if we'll talk about cost, then I think that they will have an advantage, and let's see. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadia. You brought up very significant things around aquaculture and talking about strengthening diagnostics and surveillance in different countries in Africa, basically addressing the unified regional approach to reduce disparities and different tools that can be used to ensure that we improve biosecurity. And I like the fact that you've spoken about numbers. I'm sure that excites Steve. For business people, they just want to hear numbers. So when you develop the quantitative biosecurity scoring system, I'm sure that's something most of the farmers would like. And Dr. Walakira, how do you see this welfare innovations? Steve has spoken about innovations. Dr. Nadia is talking about innovations. So how do you see these welfare innovations contributing to food security and livelihoods in East Africa and generally the African region?
Yes, thank you very much, Julie. Sorry, I've switched off my call. But these innovations, first of all, have to be low cost, affordable, and we always like that word, gender sensitive. So the other thing, I mean, you hear of even innovations of developed which are non-invasive, that they don't even harm the fish. Okay, they can be good for management practices, but equally shouldn't even harm the fish. They're trying out maybe even using mucosal
mucosal, what do you call it? Mucosal layers of the fish to understand the fish, the disease dynamics or something like that. But these should be affordable to the farmer, first of all. First of all, are they answering their needs? Do they answer their needs? You don't just develop a technology or innovation that is not suitable, is not liked by the farmers. We are talking majority of the farmers in Africa are small scale. Of course, the few are the ones who are contributing to the production, but it should be affordable, environmentally friendly, at the same time, answering the needs of the farmer. Then the other thing is, do we see the policies? Because these policies are the ones that are being used even in court. But these should be also friendly in a way that they shouldn't, deter the markets and all that, even the consumers. But at the same time, they should be answering the needs of, again, the small scale farmers and even other farmers as well. Then lastly is, we should see the economic value of whatever we are coming up with, however much it is. Do they break even when you come up with these interventions? Do they break even when they apply something like it? But even also the quality of that fish. I think that's what I should say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Walakira. You've all had this amazing conversation, and we've brought a lot of insights on the importance of fish welfare in aquaculture. And in the interest of time, I would like us to wrap up. But before we finish this panel session, I would just like to ask each of the panelists one final question. And I would start with you, Dr. Elise. If you're to name one practical priority for Africa's aquaculture sector over the next 5 years to ensure that fish health and welfare are inseparable, what would that be?
Thank you very much, Judy. If I have to name one priority area for Africa aquaculture sector over the next 5 years, I would name developing and implementing regionally harmonized fish health and welfare standards, coupled with capacity building for farmers, inspectors, and regulators. This is to ensure that the welfare is embedded directly into the fish health management practices, making the fish, making them welfare and health inseparable, and also harmonized standards to provide clear guidelines for stocking density, for example, water quality, disease management, handling, things like that, and also capacity building to equip with stakeholders to implement and monitor those parameters effectively. I submit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elise. Dr. Nadia, same question to you. If you had to name one practical priority for Africa's aquaculture sector over the next 5 years that would ensure fish health and welfare are inseparable, what would that be?
Yeah, technically, if I had to name one priority, it will be similar. Also, it will be the development and adoption of harmonized farm level at the beginning biosecurity framework that explicitly integrate welfare indicators. For example, monitor stress biomarkers, water quality, handling practices, alongside traditional pathogen surveillance. So coupling these, I think, with rapid field adaptive diagnostic can allow farmers and authorities to respond earlier to both welfare breaches and emerging disease. So after that, this farm biosecurity or this national biosecurity frame can be embedded in a larger, into a national or regional biosecurity strategy, making it a standard part of aquaculture policy and certification, I think. Also, from the farmer point of view, I hope that Steve also will join me. I think number one priority for the farmer is to equip them with simple and, as we said, low-cost tools that will link fish health and welfare together. Things like clear manuals and good handling or maintaining stock densities. I know that there are a lot of guidelines, but they have to be customized and affordable. So every farmer can have these tools and support from extension services, so we can prevent this kind of stress, or we can reduce disease and improve productivity. So I think, again, we will come back to say that this makes welfare and health inseparable and keep aquaculture profitable and sustainable for the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadia. Steve, since the farmer has been mentioned, the same question goes to you. If you're to name one practical priority for Africa's aquaculture sector over the next 5 years to ensure fish health and welfare are inseparable, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Dr. Nadia is right. Having the correct tools is essential, as I mentioned earlier. If there's a farmer on here who doesn't have an oxygen meter, you don't need to rely on a researcher or a government body or anything else. Go and buy one tomorrow. It will be the best $1,000 you ever spend as a farmer. But more broadly, I think it's collaboration. There's a lot of good work happening, be it in on the regulatory side, in the corridors of power there. There's loads of great work happening on carrying capacity and how that can, of course, carrying capacity is the environment, which is the fish health. There's incredible work going on in the world of research. There's fish health professionals that are doing a brilliant job across the continent. There's farms that are doing incredible jobs and are striving to get better every day. But without collaboration, then if all of these little work streams are happening in their own little silo and people aren't talking about it, then how do we learn? And it's one thing, as I mentioned earlier, farmers are scared to talk about sick fish and mortality. It's kind of this, it's probably the most important thing we need to get right as an industry if we're going to grow. Feed and nutrition and genetics. If we're not taking care of actual fish welfare, all of those other little things, that they kind of pale into insignificance. So as an industry, we need to talk more, we need to share more, we need to be more open with each other, we need to be more honest. And that's the only way that we can grow, is by learning from each other and collaborating. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. And finally, the same question goes to Dr. Walakira. You know, if you had to name one practical priority for Africa's aquaculture sector for the next 5 years to ensure fish welfare and health are inseparable, what would that be?
Just strengthen the private sector-led aquaculture sector. Let the government put in the policies and making sure that they enforce them, but let other things be private sector-led. That's all I should say, because that's where I see the whole aquaculture industry, revolving into a meaningful sector. I just emphasize and empower the private sector, and you see things moving on. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. In the interest of time, I would like to go to the questions and just ask a few. So we have a question from Harun Al-Bayrak. I hope I pronounced that well. Is it a disadvantage or advantage that the aquaculture industry is being managed by different departments? Dr. Walakira, do you want to respond to that?
I think we're seeing harmony these days. That issue is being addressed. You see, aquaculture in some countries is trying to be a ministry of its own, but you see harmony through, okay, like let's say in the health sector, we are talking of the One Health approach when we are dealing with issues of diseases. So yes, there might be some fragmentation, but we see that especially when you're addressing the AMR, the One Health aspect is always brought in. But it's all about, you know, the RECs, because that is now the responsibility of the RECs to at least talk to the member states and ensure that we borrow the best practices and work all together. I just want to say let's borrow from the One Health approach, the way they're dealing it with the AMR, antimicrobial resistance.
Thank you so much, Doc. There's a question here, Dr. Nadia, I will direct this to you. In what ways can fish health monitoring contribute to early detection of potential public health threats?
Excuse me, Julie, please, can you repeat the question?
In what ways can fish health monitoring contribute to early detection of potential public health threats?
Yeah, of course. Here we are talking about a better management, actually, and the better surveillance of our routinely found pathogens specific to our farmed species. And also an early diagnostic can also, and innovative tools, of course, can also be make you aware of other pathogens you are not searching for, or you are not just taking enough care. Well, if we are talking about health here, human health here, so as far as I understood, and this is a very positive point, that in fish farms we don't have a lot of zoonoses, so that's good. But in an approach of one health, as said, for especially for the AMR problem, then an early diagnostic will and an adequate diagnostic also will enable you to better treat and to better manage, avoiding overuse of antibiotics, and also mitigating this AMR and AMU problems, and this will lead automatically to a better ecosystem health and human health. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nadia. There's a question on policy, but I feel like this could be directed to Steve because he's a farmer. So Steve, what policies are there in place to make cushion farmers from unscrupulous fish feed manufacturers who compromise the quality of feeds? Hence, farmers lose a lot in terms of buying feeds. Maybe you can just address this.
I can try, but to be honest, I have no idea what policies there are in place.
From a farmer's perspective, your experience.
Yeah, hello. Now my connection's breaking. Sorry. Are you there?
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you, Steve. Please proceed.
Yeah. So, this is a tricky one for me. To be honest, I have absolutely no idea what policies are in place. There definitely are some unscrupulous, and okay, I don't know if there definitely are. There are definitely some fish feed manufacturers out there who are marketing poor quality feed, whether they're unscrupulous or just do not understand the nutritional needs of the fish. Also, not for me to say. I guess maybe what's a better way to approach this is actually how do we, as farmers, decide what fish to buy? I mean, what feed to buy? So maybe if I put that into sort of the context of how we manage a victory, and of course it's very, very difficult. We've got a joint venture feed mill. We try to buy our own feed, and we know the quality is very, very good. But if I was to try a new feed, I wouldn't just go and buy a new feed. The first thing to do is assuming you already have a feed you're happy with, and of course you have to cross that hurdle. If you want to change feed mill, then test it. don't suddenly go and never move all of your fish from one feed to another overnight. That would be foolhardy. You don't know what the feed is like. So if I was looking at buying feed from a new mill, for example, when we launched in Rwanda, we were then looking at, okay, what are the local feed options in Rwanda? So buy small quantities of feed from a couple of different mills and then test it, pilot those feeds on your fish. So actually, and it's actually, if you back to sort of those early science lessons we did, you can design a small experiment and grow some fish. And that's what we do continually at Victory. We are always trialing feed, whether it's trialing our feed, trying new formulations for our own feed mill, trialing novel ingredients, and benchmarking against other mills in the region to make sure there isn't a better feed out there. So don't just buy feed because they've got a great marketing campaign or the price looks good. Buy some, test it, pilot it, collect the data, and then follow your results. Yeah, it's not always, and again, when you're following your results, what are you actually looking for? Yeah, FCR is important. Yes, survival is important, but actually the economics are the most important number. How many kwacha, shillings, rand, whatever it is, how many dollars does it cost to produce a ton of fish? There's often, FCR is absolutely imperative. It's a critical importance. It's the most important KPI when you're considering feed, but you need to consider FCR and cost at the same time. You may well be better off as a business buying a lower quality feed, a poorer quality feed, if the price point is right, because that can then drive a better bottom line. But when you're doing the economics of it, you have to consider what does that mean, and that nutritional compromise mean in terms of fish health and welfare. So yeah, I don't know what the policies are, but my advice to any other farmer on here would be buy a little bit and test it. Even if you don't have the capacity to run trials, then just buy something small and put it on 10% of your cages, 10% of your ponds, feed it for a month or two, sample your fish, see if the growth is comparable. Watch the feed response. Do they even want to take the feed? If they don't want to take the feed, then you're never going to get a good feed response. So test it and trial it. If it works on 10% of your fish, then try it on half your fish. If it works on half your fish, then it's probably the best business decision to roll it out across the whole population. But yeah, so test and pilot rather than just buying would be my advice. And if, as farmers, we're doing that, I guess that probably reflects onto why I don't know what the policy is, because I'm not relying on a regulator to tell me whether the feed is good or not. I'm going to test it myself and prove it myself.
Thank you so much, Steve. Maybe my last question would be to Dr. Elise with regards to basically what Steve has just spoken about. Are there existing fish health and welfare guidelines?
Thank you very much for the question. As I said in the presentation, the fish health and the welfare are interconnected, and you cannot separate them. They are all interconnected. The guideline, they are there. For example, we have guideline for cage establishment where it shows where to place the cage, which feed are you going to feed the fish, how frequently do you move your cages. Those are the standards that contribute to the welfare of the fish and also health of the fish, because if you feed a feed which is not adequate to the cage, you definitely kill your fish, because it will bring some diseases. It will attract some diseases outbreak, and you lose definitively the fish. So the guidelines are there. We have guidelines for cage establishment. We have guideline for feed and the seed. We have guideline for we have the strategies for aquatic animal health, and all have elements of fish health and welfare. I submit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elise, and thank you all the panelists for making time for this webinar. Thank you our participants for being part of this. We come to the end of the webinar. What I would like to inform everyone is that we have an AFIWEL network. So the link has been shared on the chat. Please join the network. In case you have any questions that we probably may not have answered because of the issue of time, what we do is that we record the webinar, and we usually send all the questions to the panelists. Then when they do the response, we send it back to the participants. So you can continue engaging us on the network. Thank you so much for making time for this webinar. Our answer to this is, are we doing enough? Maybe for me, I would say no. Steve said no. You have the answer to yourself if you're doing enough or not. But then this is a wake-up call that we need to do more to ensure that fish welfare and fish health are being integrated for sustainable aquaculture. So thank you so much for your time, and feel free.